So we find ourselves at part 3, which is the final audio I'm going to produce on this text, The Question Concerning Technology, from Martin Heidegger's Basic Writings, as edited by David Farrell Correll. And it would be actually the 4th audio file I've created, but there was one where I decided to go back into the poetry of thought, and then I was compelled to read Fernando Pessoa, and just for a little bit of fun. But actually it has a lot to do with the question concerning technology, not just because I wanted to, but in a general sense. And I think this underscores the relationship between poetry and philosophy in a way that has already been discussed and is emerging in this reading. That video from the Book of Disquiet, I read sections 27 through 29. And in section 27, you have, surprisingly or not, something analogous to what Heidegger is saying. Although Pessoa didn't live past the 1930s, you can see how this idea in relationship to the technology of writing, this idea of potency, of some kind of strength, is held up in the technology and dispersed at a later time. Number 27, from the Book of Disquiet, A Factless Autobiography by Fernando Pessoa, we found that he's talking about literature, and he had described it as art married to thought, right? Not thinking, right? Thinking is a different thing. Thinking is a more rarefied thing observed in consciousness. But thought, art and thought. And Pessoa thinks that this is something we should all strive for. You would think that Heidegger agrees in the way that he's committed to writing in The Question Concerning Technology and all that we have discussed about his strong desire for poetry, of which is, of course, in Pessoa a given. We can call it a given, despite what that might mean. But in Pessoa's life, we know that he began wanting to become a philosopher and failed at that, right? As all poets should, and became a poet of the most extraordinary measures. But he's talking about this thing, this literature thing, and that there's something about it which conserves what is perceived in this. What is perceived and what is conserved in the writing is this moment which exceeds reality as observed, the actual reality around us. And if it's well described, right, it's preserved, and it moves and lives and it endures, right? And it's the saying, right? He's like, look, if you think it's so easy to talk about a nice day, saying that is difficult. And the nice day moves beyond us, and we need to conserve this nice day in with the technical capacity of writing, because it endures and it releases at another time, and it brings something there. There's something special about it that exceeds the literal simplicity, perhaps, of someone who's technically, in the Heideggerian sense, the modern technology, focused on that and missing what the essence of technology is. So to put it like this, both Pessoa and Heidegger understand the essence of technology and their different subject matter. Pessoa is talking about writing, the poetry or prose, and of course philosophy for Heidegger, and critiquing modern science and critiquing our understanding of the essence of technology. So this essence, let's say, is available to Pessoa through prose, and it falls deaf on technical, critical what he calls small-minded critics, right? So again, this brings back to the difference in the relationship between, in the Baudelairean sense, what is a real critic and what is not a real strong critic, right? The poet, because of his disposition, is already has an innate understanding of what criticism could really be. And we can see Heidegger in this way, right? So, of course, reading, 600 to 700 words of Pessoan prose is not the same thing as reading 40 pages of philosophical, poetic Heideggerian writing, but nonetheless, I thought to make that available in terms of making that connection, right? Because what is it that Pessoa is asking us to do? It's something I think Heidegger is also asking us to do, and that is, in Pessoa's words, consider that those who come after us in the diversity of time, what we have intensely imagined is by embodying our imagination, right? And this will have actually been. Does technique do this? Does inframing do this? And if inframing does it, how do we use it and not get destined by technology or the essence of technology? How do we actually make choices? How do we use it? And there is then an ethics, a use of what is stored in technology, right? So you can see in the great poets and the great thinkers talking about text, talking about prose, which is a technology of writing, a form of a technology of writing, that there is this desire for ethics, right? So I thought to make that analogy. At this point, I'd like to return to where we left off. And we only got through 6 pages the last time we were reading Heidegger. So, modern technology as a revealing that orders is no longer human, right? And for that, Heidegger is talking about the difference between the eidos and the eidetic, perhaps, or the immanent and the transcendent. And he moves into Gestell, which he gives as the name for modern technology. But then he begins to define inframing, but then he'll ask what inframing means again. So if you're looking for just a surefire informatic answer on it, you're not going to get it, and that's going to characterize how we read the last 10 to 15 pages here. Well, in general, he says that inframing means the gathering together of the setting upon that sets upon man, challenges humans forth to reveal the actual and the mode of ordering as standing reserved. And framing means the way of revealing that holds sway in the essence of modern technology, and that is itself nothing technological. Now, whether or not it's technological, I guess you could describe it as a technology. I mean, I happen to take the position, and I think there's a more contemporary understanding in the inheritors of Heideggerian technique, is that it is indeed something technological, but for the advancement of technique, where it goes is then on the order of the faculty of the imagination. It obtains a relationship with nature. And if you study the strong poets who think and try to understand the imagination the best they can, the imagination is something that is superior to all known conceptual faculties, right? But he says, look, inframing means the way of revealing that holds sway in the essence of modern technology, but that is not anything technological. Then he says, well, all those things that are familiar to us are standard parts of assembly belong to the technological. So he's trying to differentiate here what he means. Moving on then to where we left off, page 326. We have this issue with the concealing and unconcealing aletheia, right? And the differentiation between what is merely instrumental or anthropological as a definition of technology and what he considers to be untenable, right? So he also says, look, it may not be rounded out, by being referred back to some metaphysical or religious explanation that undergirds it. So if you think about what metaphysical means, or a religious explanation, anything that's theological, trying to create a knowledge or understanding of belief and faith in something, right? He's like, look, I don't think that works. It doesn't mean that we can't see some level of belief working in the text of Heidegger, right? That we don't see that trait. Just like in science, you have to test out, right? You have to test something with a theoretical framework and the facts and data you have gathered in order to produce and replicate the results. It's when we can no longer replicate them by adding different controls or however we tend to approach it, is when we have a discovery, right? In a very general sense. It's convergent and deductive until the point where there's an abductive sort of experience where, hey, maybe there are other things going on here. Let's test these out, and then we have discoveries, right? In the relationship between science and religion, right, there is a dovetailing, is what I'm trying to say, and this characterizes the anxiety in modernity, because as soon as you try to institute a regime of scientific truth into the social, into public policy, you're going way too hard on one foot, right? You're trying to get forward with both feet. You're hopping on one foot, right? The other foot struggles, and it doesn't really work that way in my view. There's always a balancing. There's always a movement together, and whatever polarities you're dealing with. So when Heidegger is taking a position here about metaphysical or religious explanations that undergird technology, saying, look, that's part of the flaw of being human beings, that it's merely instrumental or anthropological, because this is the way we wonder about our purpose, right? So for him, we are in this technological age, and we're challenged forth into revealing, but it concerns nature as the chief storehouse of the standing reserve energy. I'm on page 326, okay? And he talks about our attitudes, and he brings up modern physics again. He says, look, it's not experimental because it applies apparatus to the questioning of nature, right? The reverse is true, he says, because physics indeed already, as pure theory, sets upon nature to exhibit itself as a coherence of forces calculable in advance. It orders its experiments precisely for the purpose of asking whether and how nature reports itself when set up in this way. So I thought that I struck out the fact that Donald J. Hoffman was interesting for this with his psychophysics. I think we're still trying to deal with this, the soliloquy of thought, and this trap of subjectivity, that being and time are the antinomies of our existence, and they're irreducible. We can't go beyond those things. There's a clear distinction here. I think that in terms of correlationism and Heideggerian correlationism, I think you can already see in the question concerning technology that this correlation can be broken, right? And it was back away with the revealing reveals to itself, the contradiction that he mentions, and the transgression that I was getting excited about. It would take more study. It would take more time to investigate that in a thoroughgoing, rigorous way with Heidegger. I do not really consider myself a committed Heideggerian scholar, but if I was to pursue that path, I would probably pursue that thread. He goes on, the 327, about the modern physical theory of nature. But he says, look, this is not just for technology, but it also is for the essence of modern technology. And I think this is very interesting because he goes into some of his conceptual play here. But if the modern physical theory of nature prepares the way, not simply for technology, but the essence of modern technology, then okay, I guess, right? It's nature. It's entered into the natural. But how do we understand this auger of mysterious natural force, which sets up our knowledge of nature before it is even revealed to us? Because that's where he's getting at. That's why I think Donald Hoffman's interesting in what he proposes, and other people. But he calls modern physics the herald of enframing, a herald whose provenance is still unknown. Interesting. This is, again, the techno-scientific thing. This is trying to challenge what Thomas Kuhn talks about as the image of scientific knowledge, that we're stuck in its replication. Good stuff. And then he gets into all this idea of presence. Not only modern technology keeps itself everywhere concealed to the last. I don't know about the last. I mean, again, if we're thinking about our religious detector here, and we talk about the end of everything, right? Oh, let's just keep our mind open. So for me, I want to keep this a bit swifter than it has before, because Heidegger's really making a lot more complicated things here to unpack word by word. I'm going to riff with it. Bottom of 327. If modern physics must resign itself ever increasingly to the fact that its realm of representation remains inscrutable and incapable of being visualized, this resignation is not dictated by any committee of researchers. True, right? True. Today we see that there is this looming threat that the ones who set it up, or you set up ChatGPT, for instance, and it works on this data set. Now, even as number 4 comes out, right? They're restricting exactly, the inside baseball of it all, right? They have a limiter. If you've got a super fast muscle car, you put a governor on the carburetor, so it can't go as fast. Again, is this really, what does this have to do with the essence of technology more than the instrumental understanding of technology? I'm not sure. So we have to make sure we keep this distinction in play. Right? It's challenged forth by the rule of enframing, he says, which demands that nature be orderable as standing reserve. I think this is folly. I think we know that. He goes a bit deeper into physics. He even goes back into the idea of causal efficiency, right? Causality now displays neither the character of the occasioning that brings forth, nor the nature of the causa efficiens, let alone that of the causa formalis. It seems as though causality is shrinking into a reporting challenged forth, of standing reserves that must be guaranteed either simultaneously or in sequence. This shrinking would correspond to the process of growing resignation that Heisenberg's lecture depicts in so impressive a manner. Okay, that's 328. I think if you're interested in that, you might want to investigate it. But we're moving on here. So questioning technology in order to bring to light our relationship to its essence. Okay, we're really now honing in on this essence, right? Which he begins with, right? So he's given you some conceptual things to think about, how to pull from the standing reserve and apply from the standing reserve in order to take part in and use technology ethically. Right now that we've been given some of this terminology, and it takes a long time to learn and then make analogous references to, if you're new to it, let's just come back to this where we started. He says the essence of modern technology sows itself in what we call enframing. But he said, look, this is not how we're going to answer the question concerning technology. If to answer means to respond in the sense of correspond, right, to the essence of what is being asked about. So when he says correspond here, of course, it's the subject-object relationship, which could be reduced to being in thought, being in time, right? These basic things, right? If we really want to know what a subject is in relationship to its object, what it perceives of the object and makes into a knowledge, which then informs how we perceive the next thing, right? The question concerning technology concerns this basic correspondence theory in regard to truth. What is true? And what transgresses the antinomy? What breaks through the relational field between subject and object, between user and technology, so-called? He wants to take it one step further. He's asking what enframing itself actually is. It's nothing technological, nothing on the order of a machine. It's the way in which the actual reveals itself as standing reserve. The actual, right? Not the potential. The potential is stored up in a way, brought out of nature, but stored up. And in this way, potential is being revealed, of which we pull it out in the actual, right? In the actual perception of what is possible, and it's revealing itself as standing reserve. We can't get the whole standing reserve, it seems. We can only get this thing which we can apply. And he wants to know, look, does this happen somewhere beyond all human doing? He says no. But neither does it happen exclusively in man or definitively through man. And I think this religious caution, this metaphysical caution is important. I think if we followed something like religious or metaphysical explanations, we might end up in a lot of circles and a lot of conspiracy thinking. I think this desire we have for answers and the promise of information in the so-called information revolution, or the digital age, or the digital part of this information experience we have, definitely our imaginations can be misled into illusion, right? Not fulfillment. Fulfillment would be using this, not being used by it, right? It's back to the essence, not just of technology, but the essence of freedom, fate, or free will of subjective choice, right? Heidegger's, I want to put this in simple terms. Heidegger is saying, look, when enframing gathers together something that belongs to setting upon, right? So setting upon nature, it challenges human beings and puts us in a position to reveal in the actual what human subjects can perceive, right? In the mode of ordering as standing reserve. So if you do this, you stand within the essential realm of enframing, the essence of enframing. It gets complicated, right? So he's like, if enframing, right, it's this gathering together and it belongs to that rapacious sort of machinery of the terrestrial earth, meaning it sets upon earth, gathers nature, pulls it in. It challenges human beings and puts us in a position, then we have to reveal by our perceptive powers, our subjective perceptive powers, in the mode of ordering as standing reserve. So we're actually now becoming, in this way, a kind of standing reserve which has this ability. And if we're challenged forth in this way, we're in the essential realm of enframing. It's not something you can do. You don't really decide to do it later. It kind of happens in the now, right? So how do we arrive at that? I'm on 329. How do we arrive at that? That is his question, right? It's always too late, right? So the sway, what other philosophers will call the event, right? Or what they might describe as a political movement, for instance, is once it's recognized actually in the world that Occupy Wall Street or Black Lives Matter, it is already too late in the sense of its deep terrestrial and relationship with nature as ordering, right? Then you have institutionalized political movements, right? You have ideology, which is different than the eidos, different than the immanent felt truth, which is probably the last place authentic politics exists, at the immediate moment of our feeling it, right? So he's like, look, it's already too late. If you're trying to pose, you're trying to posture. And I think if we think about today, a lot of posturing, like this. Look at this George Santos character in American politics. I don't know if you follow it, but it doesn't matter. He keeps posturing as all these different people, and apparently is under investigation, criminal investigation. But he's a member of politics, right? American politics, and he's already too late. But he's constantly switching his setup, right? So when you financialize social movement, for instance, it's the same thing. You're trying to use the instruments of finance and technology, right, to order something at which you cannot order. And this is kind of, I would say in a flip way, the cynicism of the moment in which we live. And I think Heidegger here is spot on. Other philosophers like Alain Badiou, Giorgio Agamben, Jean-Luc Nancy, and others have worked through these ideas about the difference between, what is seismic, what is an event, and then what is recognized actually in the world. And this is, why Heidegger is significant, right? He's one of these thinkers, and certainly not the first or the last to take it up. So let's continue. The essence of modern technology starts man upon the way of that revealing through which the actual everywhere more or less distinctly becomes standing reserve. So the actual, right? And then he gets into this kind of correspondence with this enframing and the actual, right? We shall call the sending that gathers, that first starts man upon a way of revealing, destining. It is from this destining that the essence of all history is determined. So our sense of history, this is pretty important too. Our sense of history, determined by history. And I'm reminded of Gadamer for some reason here. But our sense of history, the historically affected consciousness, right? In terms of Geschichte, right? Of the Geschick, destining in history, is changed. I'm drawn to this. I had thought about and worked with Heidegger's concept here years ago when internet radicalization was something that people were concerned about. How do you become radicalized on the internet? I think if you see how far that has gone, right, that you begin to, just because you have access to information and somehow you're desiring community or truth about your life, right, you're making the mistake of the religious or the metaphysical, then you feel like you're part of this historical determination, right? Or perhaps you don't see how you're being determined here. So I think this is another good ethical moment where we have to understand what is appearing to us. We have to question what is actual, right? And understand deeper how we're being, in some sense, being made a tool, right? We're losing our ability to make choices, to critically question what we're actually experiencing, right? I mean, you see a lot of the January 6th stuff that happened was in the United States, the attempted coup. Not a very good attempt, but nonetheless, a lot of that was created through the internet, right? And social media and such, right? On a common belief, a common destiny. So what does Heidegger say 70 some odd years before? It is from this destining that the essence of all history is determined. History is neither simply the object of written chronicle, right, the old books, right, all that stuff, or what was written down from oral tradition to the technology of writing. He says history is neither simply the object of written chronicle nor merely the process of human activity. That activity first becomes history as something destined, so it's determined to go somewhere, right? And it is only the destining into objectifying representation that makes the historical accessible as an object for historiography, for a science, and on this basis makes possible the current equating of the historical with that which is chronicled. Page 330. So he's making the analysis. He says, look, bringing forth, right? if bringing forth is important, because inframing is an ordaining of destining. Okay, it gives destining a particular appeal, as is every way of revealing. Bringing forth poesis is also a destining in this sense, but this poesis is a different kind of destining. We can assume here at that point that this poesis is what we need to use, right? Unconcealment, remember, poesis aletheia. This is really important because revealing, right? The revealing reveals to itself, right? And if we get into understanding how we can unconceal through when it is unconcealed by the sway, right? If it opens up to us, we must immediately engage it and work with it. We can't wait. We can't posture. We can't financialize the market to complete certainty, as you see banks collapse and housing markets collapse, and all these people, have issues with always knowing what the market's going to do, right? So, destining, though, he says, is never a fate that compels. And man becomes truly free only insofar as he belongs to the realm of destining, and so becomes one who listens, though not one who simply obeys. Good advice there. Okay, he's back to the essence of freedom. And in the essence of freedom, he says it's originally not concerned with the will, or even with the causality of human willing. So what human willing sets about in the world, right? Remember, when we make the object, we form this object from the eidos, right? What is immediate, and then we begin to specify it with skill to hone the eidos. Then it has a purpose in society, but its full feature of this object and its sort of going about in the world is not up to us. The same concept here. Freedom governs the space in the sense of the cleared. That is to say, the revealed, right? So this is kind of clearing, right? That is what is revealed. But remember, the religious, he's tried to distance himself from this religious and metaphysical thinking here. You make your own mind up about that. He goes on, to the occurrence of revealing of truth, freedom stands in the closest and most intimate kinship. All revealing belongs within a harboring and a concealing, but that which frees the mystery is concealed and always concealing itself. One thing you might find difficult about Heidegger is that, well, what do you mean? Like revealing, freeing, you really have to pay attention to the words here. Is he just saying, okay, but that which frees? Well, what is that which frees, right? What is giving this? What is granting this? So again, I call into question, right? It's such a vague thing to say, and that's philosophy, right? But in fact, it's such an important part. Attending to the rhetoric and the idiom, again, is important. But that which frees the mystery is concealed and always concealing itself. All revealing comes out of the free, goes into the free, and brings into the free. The freedom of the free consists neither in unfettered arbitrariness nor in the constraint of mere laws. Freedom is that which conceals in a way that opens to light, and whose clearing shimmers the veil that hides the essential occurrence of all truth, and lets the veil appear as what veils. Freedom is the realm of destining that at any given time starts a revealing on its way. Wow. Heidegger seems to know so much, right? Let's try this again. All revealing comes out of the free, goes into the free, and brings into the free. The freedom of the free consists neither in unfettered arbitrariness nor in the constraint of mere laws. Freedom is that which conceals in a way that opens to light, in whose clearing shimmers the veil that hides the essential occurrence of all truth and lets the veil appeal as what veils. Freedom is the realm of destining that at any given time starts a revealing on its way. I think if you read and get the feel, at least in the English translation, right? It seems like a pretty good translation to me. I can feel it, I can move with it, I understand. I think here we might begin to take the literature of this and just enjoy it. We can almost see a more general, how would I put this? In a more relativistic sense, right? A kind of poetic relationship to his object. The poetical activity here between a philosopher and the poem. And in trying to figure out what type of philosopher one is. And nonetheless, the essence of modern technology lies in framing, and framing belongs within the destiny of revealing. These sentences express something different from the talk that we hear more frequently to the effect that technology is the fate of our age, where fate means the inevitableness of an unalterable course. And this is the Heidegger that is quite potent. So his proof, right, is this incredible cadence that I just read on 330. But then he's like, look, get over this whole fated to die, right? Or this Hegelian idea that all artworks have been made, all you are is merely repetitions. That is despairing, that is defeating. So there is a bit of an optimistic thinking here, right? Even though I have my issues with Heidegger's approach to poetry, I think in this reading we can create some more apologies for perhaps what would have been initial misunderstandings, right? So if the essence of technology, I'm on 331, the essence of technology lies in framing, its holding sway belongs within destining. So this destining thing we got to get figuring out here, because if we're going to have an ethical approach, right, which is for our continuity, to using the actual, right, to actually find ourselves within the standing reserve as it's there, right, we got to get a hold of this destining thing. Let's see. Since destining at any given time starts man on a way of revealing, man thus underway is continually approaching the brink of the possibility of pursuing and promulgating nothing but what is revealed in ordering, and of deriving all his standards on this basis. Whoa. See why I want to skip or just essentialize some of this writing, right? So in destining, right, if we get it wrong, everything from which we understand about destining will be screwed up. This is someone who doesn't create a lot of art, or is new to creating art, right? He's very careful about what's going on here. He's thinking about all these different things and what I could do. That's how I would read it. Right? Poetry somehow became a truth to him, right? But okay, I can't screw this up. I got to get it right, and I got to get it right without knowing getting it right. So I'm going to create an ethical practice in which disappears, and then when it does occur to me, it'll just automatically kick in as skill. Something like this, right? Placed between these possibilities, man is endangered by destining. The destining of revealing is as such in every one of its modes, and therefore necessarily danger, right? We're endangered by destining. You better get it right. The destining of revealing is as such in every one of its modes, and therefore necessarily danger. Mode, again, the way you practice this as an existent. You have these different modes of practicing these different identities. George Santos is a good example. He's still practicing it in the same way, and still a fraud, and still in a lot of trouble. In whatever way the destiny of revealing may hold sway, the unconcealment in which everything that is shows itself at any given time harbors the danger that man may misconstrue the unconcealed and misinterpret it. Right? It's really, really an all-striking thing. If you misinterpret it, you might really screw this up. Thus, where everything that presences exhibits itself in the light of a cause-effect coherence, even God, for representational thinking, can lose all that is exalted and holy, the mysteriousness of his distance. Okay, he's starting to talk about God here, so let's take a look. In the light of causality, God can sink to the level of a causa efficiens. he then becomes, even in theology, the God of the philosophers, namely of those who define the unconcealed and the concealed in terms of the causality of making, without ever considering the essential providence of this causality. So what? I mean, God is, we know Heidegger studied Nietzsche, wrote couple books, huge books on Nietzsche. I think the more conventional interpretation of Heidegger is he's an Aristotelian. I see a lot of Hegel, of course, in my reading of Heidegger, but that doesn't mean anything more than what one sees, I suppose. Let's keep on with the destiny of revealing and set this God thing aside. I think if you want to understand, I think you should read Kierkegaard, right? And you should read Kierkegaard not necessarily as a philosopher, because he never called himself a philosopher. You should read Kierkegaard as probably the best relationship to an absolute, right? And see it within his time. So we'll leave that aside. Just to say that Heidegger did read a lot of Kierkegaard, but I think he moved on from Kierkegaard at some point. Okay, so in a similar way, the unconcealment in accordance with which nature presents itself as a calculable complex of the effects of forces can indeed permit correct determinations, but precisely through these successes the danger may remain that in the midst of all that is correct, the true will withdraw. So once you think you know what a divine thing is, the truth will be gone already. Again, it's that once you have a political movement and you have an ideology, it's hollow. Right? What is an ideology then? Let's think about that. The logical, the logos, the discourse of the eidos, of the idea. What's your idea? My idea is communism, let's say. How do you achieve communism? Well, you have a 5-year plan. You have a new economic project. You create communes, right? And you plan that stuff out. Communism is a great example because if you make it a program, right? If it's a program that has to be carried out, you have all these problems of decisions, of will or of being destined, right? Of human subjective existence, right? That kind of screws it up. Then you have different variations. You have a platform. It's like any political party in the United States, the major 2 political parties. Do they ever really achieve healthcare for all? No. Can you ever really achieve that, right? But what's the more general thing there? That people should be taken care of, right? That you shouldn't suffer unnecessarily based on what you can provide to people. It never works, right? So this is part of it, right? If you understand that the truth of your politics is already beyond you, then you perhaps adopt a more progressive understanding outside of ideology to where that truth is emerging. Doesn't make you an opportunist. An opportunist will exploit, but it makes you a progressive politically, because what needs to be conserved is often an after effect of what is true, right? Again, these are becoming, you can work with my words in many, many ways. Capitalism is an ideology insofar as you can instrumentalize it, right? And you can do quantitative easing or quantitative tightening, or we can go into these places as well. The point is that it doesn't always work. right? So the withdrawal of the true is a caution to your political commitments. Not to say you don't have political commitments, but I think here, when we're dealing with technology and what sets upon and what orders and how to understand how to, and through what you can perceive, do this ethically, I think Heidegger has a very progressive, what can be derived from this is a progressive understanding of how to steer technology the best we can for the dignity and nature of human health and continuity by the imagination. We must imagine, and then we must, through imagine what is imagined or our imagination, practice. And it's tough, right? And there's a lot of screw-ups, and we have a lot of screw-ups going on right now, as we can see, right? And a lot of possibilities as well. Again, moving on. He's talking about destining. It reigns in the mode of enframing. So enframing is this mode, and it is the supreme danger. This danger attests itself to us in two ways, right? So as soon as what is unconcealed no longer concerns us, even as an object, right, but as standing reserve, and in the midst of this objectlessness, remember, we have to reach into what disappears into the enframing. Is nothing but the orderer of the standing reserve. Then this is a problem, right? Heidegger says he comes to the very brink of a precipitous fall. That is, he comes to the point where he himself will have to be taken as standing reserve. So you're fully absorbed into it, right? You follow QAnon. I don't think there's anywhere else I can go. That's my reference. I'm sticking with it for now. Maybe I'm wrong. But he does talk about illusions, as I had mentioned earlier. Look, in the poetry of thought, there are two things, and this choice really goes back to Homer, right? Two choices you can make when you emerge from the dream into the world. What are those two choices? Illusion, the path of illusion, or the path of fulfillment, right? Illusion is, in some sense, the basic framework of a psychological pathologies. You get lost in the discourse and the thinking of a narcissist or the sociopathic. I'm not going to sit here and deal with the concrete and positive elements of research that says, these certain parts of the brain show us the sociopathic truth, right? It is, in some sense, for some people, not a choice. They make choices within it, but they're locked in this illusion. Fulfillment is something else. And I want to make the distinction here that in technique, in information, in this world at which we've entered, right? We're destining and history, determination, the historically affected consciousness, the understanding of the I within, as Pessoa says, the panorama of a patinaed history. This, if you are standing reserve, you have given into the illusion, which gives rise in turn to one final delusion. It seems as though man everywhere and always encounters only himself. So, as Heidegger says on 332, about middle of the page, right? But he's not talking about fulfillment explicitly, but nonetheless, this is the fundamental here. And this is perhaps the biggest problem I have with Heidegger is, well, what about fulfillment? I think he talks about it in terms of, trying to steer technology, but nonetheless, steering is already the cyber, right, from the Greeks. An automatic sort of device. He talks about Heisenberg. I think we can not talk about that. Let's see if we can. So he doesn't see in framing, right? Human beings, we don't see in framing as a claim. We don't even see ourselves as the one who is spoken to. We exist, says Heidegger, in terms of his essence, in a realm where we're addressed, but that we can never only encounter ourself. We are encountering a kind of digital self, you could say, or modes that have been fully developed right? And not ourselves. It's an inauthentic existence. It's the solipsistic, perhaps, or it was as if Pessoa was no longer himself and all his different poets were existing, and that's all he had reference to. And so he says, and framing does not simply endanger man in his relationship to himself and to everything that is. As a destining, it banishes man into the kind of revealing that is an ordering. Where this ordering holds sway, it drives out every other possibility of revealing. So your relationship to movement, to the fundamental seismic of the event, is now caught up in this thing. You're standing reserve, and you're just basically looking around and within different modes of yourself, and you're not authentic, you're not understanding, you can't steer this stuff. You've fallen out of the open. Right? It's quite fascinating stuff. Where this ordering holds sway, it drives out every other possibility of revealing. Above all, and framing conceals that revealing which, in the sense of poiesis, lets what presences come forth into appearance. So you're not going to make it show up. Your art sucks. Your writing sucks. You might as well just plagiarize, right? This is a problem, I suppose, we go back to ChatGPT, right? Are you even dealing with versions of yourself? Actually, you're dealing with versions of, let's say you would say, okay, can you write a text that Heidegger might write? That's an inauthentic illusion or a mode of Heidegger, because Heidegger himself is not writing it. But you could write in Heidegger style, write in the late Heideggerian style, and it could produce something like that. I suppose I haven't tried it, but I mean, when I've played with it, it's done things that are interesting and similar. So now we're in a point where the illusions of the lost self, the true, is all we have. And the more we play with this stuff, the more we create that. I suppose the question is that authentic in terms of our playing with it? Right? Do we still have the open relationship to it? What does it teach us? What does it reveal to us about ourselves that is authentic and true? Because again, if the decision is between fulfillment and illusion, which he's only talking about illusion, and he really wants us to use poiesis, right? He's saying your poiesis can get all jacked up, and you present stuff, and you make things come forth into appearance, which is based on a whole constellation of illusions. Again, I know if you're new to this, and if you've made it this far, perhaps this is doesn't make any sense. You have to keep with it. But essentially what's going on here is that we're trying to understand what is fulfilling about technology. How do we use it in a fulfilling and authentic way? Right? So, where this ordering holds sway, it drives out every other possibility of revealing. Above all, and framing conceals the revealing which, in the sense of poiesis, lets what presences come forth into appearance. As compared with that other revealing, the setting upon that challenges forth, thrust man into a relation to whatever it is, to whatever is that is at once antithetical and rigorously ordered. Let me try this again, okay? Above all, and framing conceals that revealing which, in the sense of poiesis, lets what presences come forth into appearance. Even though it's present, you might not visualize it. It might not appear in the actual sense. Then he says, as compared with that other revealing. The setting upon that challenges forth thrust man into a relation to whatever is that is at once antithetical and rigorously ordered. Wherein framing holds sway, regulating and securing of the standing reserve mark all revealing. They no longer let their own fundamental characteristic appear, namely this revealing as such. Okay, you can't do what Guns N' Roses says in the title of one of their albums, Use Your Illusion. Right, it becomes more difficult. That's the challenging. I'm just totally going to skate over that. I'll let you look at it. He's talking about two different places, right? The crisis of illusion here. Thus, the challenging in framing not only conceals a former way of revealing, but also conceals revealing itself, and with it, that wherein unconcealment truth appropriates. Okay, that's 333. In this way, framing becomes your worst enemy. It blocks the shining forth and holding sway of truth. Right? A framing's turned against you because this delusion, this final delusion, and it's only about you. It's all about you. You're a narcissist, right? If you watch The Wire, it's all about McNulty in the first season, right? And they tell him that, right? Okay. The destining that sends into ordering is consequently the extreme danger. What is dangerous is not technology. Technology is not demonic, but its essence is mysterious. The essence of technology as a destining of revealing is the danger. The essence is the danger. The transformed meaning of the word enframing will perhaps become somewhat more familiar to us now if we think in framing in the sense of destining and danger. So he's now signaling a transition. It's not, the threat to us, he says, is not lethal machines or the apparatus of technology. Right? The actual threat has already afflicted us. Okay? He says this, the actual threat has already afflicted humans in their essence. The rule of enframing threatens man with the possibility that it could be denied to him to enter into a more original revealing, hence to experience the call of a more primal truth. Well, what's the call of a more primal truth? Yes, okay. This is where enframing reigns. There is danger in the highest sense. And then he quotes Hölderlin, but where danger is, grows the saving power also. Heidegger seems to see that fulfillment and illusion, right? You have to be able to understand essence in order to make this shift. I'm not going to go into Heidegger's interpretation of Hölderlin. I don't know if I could survive that. But he derives from that. Then the rule of enframing cannot exhaust itself solely in blocking all lighting up of every revealing, all appearing of truth. Rather precisely, the essence of technology must harbor in itself the growth of the saving power. So it's in the essence of technology. Well, that sounds metaphysical, isn't it? Must harbor in itself the growth of the saving power. He says, look, let's rethink enframing then. So he gave us definitions. Now he's like, okay, let's rethink it, because Hölderlin says, right? And Hölderlin says why. Where enframing reigns, there is danger in the highest sense, right? He says, I guess I'm going to see what he says about Hölderlin. Fine. What does it mean to save? Usually we think it means only to seize hold of a thing threaded by ruin in order to secure it in its former continuance. I think on 333, I'm working between the end of 333 to 334. A primal truth. It doesn't come from philosophy. It comes from the poem. The relationship to the object, the supreme object of philosophy. Okay, let's get that straight. Heidegger's only talking about illusion. He's like, how do I get out of this illusion? There's got to be a primal truth. We have to think about it in essence, right? If there is truth in Hölderlin's words, then the rule of enframing cannot exhaust itself solely in blocking all lighting up and ever revealing all appearing of truth. Yes, here Heidegger, I think, sorry, but I do think, sorry for some who really like finitude, he's like, no, there's more. There's something that breaks through this. Now, why do you find it in the essence then, right? Why is this sort of potentially misunderstanding of metaphysics and what he calls the religious, right? I think the religious is a different thing, right? Metaphysics and religion are not, they're associated, just like science and religion and etc. Okay, let's not go there for the sake of time. The essence of technology must harbor in itself the growth of the saving power. So there's a saving power, right? How does this work? He says, but according to the words of the poet, we have no right whatsoever to expect that there where the danger is, we should be able to lay hold of the saving power immediately and without preparation. Therefore, we must consider now in advance in what respect the saving power does most profoundly take root and thence thrive, even where the extreme danger lies in the holding sway of enframing. In order to consider that it is necessary as a last step upon our way, to look with yet clearer eyes into the danger. Accordingly, we must once more question concerning technology, for we have said that in technology's essence roots and thrives the saving power. In technology's essence, interlocking paths, manifoldly revealing, the revealing reveals to itself, thrives the saving power. It's hard for me not to see this as redemption, as revealing, as the residuum of religious thinking, of Christianity. It's hard for me not to see it. As much as Heidegger loves the Greeks, as much as someone loves and desires something, doesn't mean they're necessarily correct. We have to pay attention to our feeling with the text. And when we have our own authentic reading, let's say, of the encounter with the text, these are important notes to make. I think it's poetry which is saving Heidegger's crisis, right? This destitution of philosophy. But how shall we behold the saving power in the essence of technology so long as we do not consider in what sense of essence is that enframing properly is the essence of technology? That's a crazy sentence. But how shall we behold the saving power in the essence of technology so long as we do not consider in what sense of the essence it is that enframing properly is the technology, essence of technology? It doesn't, let's try it. But how shall we behold the saving power in the essence of technology so long as we do not consider in what sense of the essence it is that enframing properly is the essence of technology? Wow. Okay. This is not the clarity of genius, this sentence, okay? Last time I talked about talent and genius. It is not the clarity of genius. It is someone struggling, as I noted a few pages earlier, to say, let's not screw this up. Let's just do it now. Let's not wait. It'll be gone by the time my idea is gone, right? It's a desperation to chase that which they don't know if they have in them, which is the ability for a poem like a poet and his poem, Hölderlin's poem, to cut right through the problem, to cut the binary of being and thinking, of being and thought, and to have its source in something absolute. Heidegger is just struggling to do this, in my view. So he goes into goes back to the essence, right? We've covered essence a lot. He comes to the question at the bottom, 334. Is then the essence of technology in framing the common genius? Oh, sorry. Is the essence of technology in framing the common genus for everything technological? If this were the case, then the steam turbine, the radio transmitter, and the cyclotron would each be an enframing, but the word enframing does not mean here a tool of any kind of apparatus, or any kind of apparatus. It's not a tool. Still less does it mean the general concept of such resources. The machines and apparatus are no more cases and kinds of enframing than are the man at the switchboard and the engineer in the drafting room. Okay? It's only a stock part. It's a resource. It's a function within enframing. But enframing is never the essence of technology in the sense of genius. Enframing is a way of revealing that is destining, namely the way that challenges forth. The revealing that brings forth poesis is also a way that has the character of destining. But these ways are not kinds that, arrayed beside one another, fall under the concept of revealing. Okay, so what is revealing? He'll tell you, 335. In the middle, that's where I am. Revealing is that destining which, ever suddenly and inexplicit... Let me try again. Yeah. A lot of modals. Revealing is that destining which, ever suddenly and inexplicably, to all thinking, apportions itself into the revealing that brings forth and the revealing that challenges, and which allots itself to man. The revealing that challenges has its origin as a destining in bringing forth, but at the same time in framing in a way characteristic of a destining blocks poiesis. Thus, in framing as a destining of revealing is indeed the essence of technology, but never in the sense of genius and essentia. If we pay heed to this, something astounding strikes us. It is technology itself that makes the demand on us to think in another way what is usually understood by essence. But in what way? So what way of this essence? He talks about governance and the gathering community on 335, right? Administering. Even technology will affect these electromechanical forms of government. We'll move on. Page 336. He's talking about unfolding. He goes back to Eidos, idea. He says, in the middle of 336, the way in which technology unfolds lets itself be seen only on the basis of that permanent enduring in which in framing appropriates as a destining of revealing. Talks about Goethe. Granting continuously. Okay, well, we'll move on. Only what is granted endures. When endures primarily out of the earliest beginning is what grants. Okay, so at the bottom of 336, he's talking about Goethe. For the sake of time and continuity, I'm going to keep this short. Only what is granted endures, right? So the very moment of this movement, what we want to name, instrumentalize, and turn into an ideology, a program, a totality on earth, you have to get it right there. What endures is primarily out of the earliest beginning of what is what grants. So the most effective is that very moment, right? And this is the essencing of technology. Inframing is what endures from this. Does inframing hold a sway at all in the sense of granting? No doubt the question becomes a horrendous blunder, for according to everything that has been said, inframing is rather a destining that gathers together into the revealing that challenges forth. Wow. Inframing is rather a destining. Okay, this is a problem. Inframing becomes a destining, right? Let's see. Let's move on. 337. For there is no such thing as a man who exists singly and solely on his own, right? You're not entirely a sociopath, right? Even a narcissist needs a target. But if this destining and framing is an extreme danger, not only for man's essential unfolding, but for all revealing as such, should this destining still be called a granting? Yes, most emphatically, Heidegger says, if in this destining the saving power is said to grow. So the poet gives you saving power. The saving power is in the danger. And what is initially at the beginning of this granting, when endures, right? We have to keep with it. So needed and used, man is given to belong to the appropriative event of truth. So truth is there, right? We just have to keep with it. We have to keep watch over the unconcealment, right? We have to understand that polling data can be wrong. There's deep fakes out there. What is our understanding of the truth of an image, right? I mean, this goes deep, right? We can be fooled. We can be forced into illusions, the different modalities, right? Surveillance capitalism as well. It can predicate our own existence and choices and decisions in this world, right? In framing, it is in framing, bottom of 337, which threatens to sweep man away into ordering as the ostensibly sole way of revealing, and so thrust man into the danger of the surrender of his free essence. It is precisely this extreme danger that the innermost destructible belongingness of man within granting may come to light, provided that we, for our part, begin to pay heed to the essence of technology. Thus, the essential unfolding of technology harbors in itself what we least suspect, the possible rise of the saving power. What is our saving power? Well, so long as we represent technology as an instrument, we remain transfixed in the will to master it. We press on past the essence of technology. On the other hand, in framing, Amon 338 appropriates for its part in the granting that lets man endure as yet inexperienced, but perhaps more experienced in the future, that he may be the one who is needed and used for the safekeeping of the essence of truth. Thus the rising of the saving power appears. Are we there? Are we there yet? Right? It's this ambiguous essence of technology. We behold the constellation stellar course of the mystery. Interesting. But what help is it to us to look into the constellation of truth? We look into the danger and see the growth of the saving power. Through this, we are not yet saved, but we are thereupon summoned to hope in the growing light of the saving power. How can this happen? Here and now, and in little things, that we may foster the saving power in its increase. This includes holding always before our eyes the extreme danger. The extreme danger, right? 339. The essential unfolding of technology threatens revealing. Threatens it with the possibility that all revealing will be consumed in ordering, and that everything will present itself only in the unconcealment of standing reserve. Human activity can never directly counter this danger. Human achievement alone can never banish it, but human reflection can ponder the fact that all saving power must be of a higher essence than what is endangered, though at the same time kindred to it. But might there not perhaps be a more primally granted revealing that could bring the saving power into its first shining forth into the midst of the danger that in the technological age rather conceals and shows itself? That's a tough question. I'm on 339 at the top there. He's dealing with the antinomies. He's doing philosophy here. He goes on. There was a time when it was not technology alone that bore the name techne. Once the revealing that brings forth truth into the splendor of a radiant appearance was also called techne. There was a time when the bringing forth of the true into the beautiful was called techne. The poiesis of the fine arts was also called techne. So he talks about the ancient Greeks and arts. He says toward the bottom of 339, the arts were not derived from the artistic. Artworks were not enjoyed aesthetically. Art was not a sector of cultural activity. Correct. Today, that's all it is. Still, the truth of art, the non-illusion aspect of art, the non-narcissistic, psychopathic, financialization, instrumentalization of art, or if anything, of even buying a home, of having a job, of existing in this world, right? Even the question, you can buy this home and enjoy it, right? Even that's like a proposition of what? Of illusion. How does one really enjoy their home or wherever they are, right? You go into someone's home and it's really nicely made, but that's not dwelling, right? Being in a place or being with one's own self, insofar as they can see that self or see another person with selves and question that relationship, right? So the arts were not derived from the artistic, right? The activity. They were derived from something else. Poiesis, bringing forth, and how bringing forth is done is understood in the artistic, right? What was art, he asked, perhaps only for that brief but magnificent age. Is this a Hegelian whiff here? Well, what did art bear? Why did art bear the modest name techne? Because it was a revealing that brought forth and made present and therefore belonged within poesis. It was finally that revealing which holds complete sway in all the fine arts, in poetry, and everything poetical that obtained poesis as its proper name. Poetry in poesis, what's the relationship there, right? Fine arts is the artistic, right, the discipline and definition of fine arts, right? Poetry is that which is within all the fine arts, and poesis is the adjective of poetry, which guards itself, right? He comes back to Odeline, but where danger is, grows the saving power. Also, poetically, man dwells on this earth. Okay, yes. Between what? A poet and whatever existence, I suppose. The poetical brings the true into the splendor of what Plato and the Phaedrus calls ekphanistaton, that which shines forth most purely. The poetical thoroughly pervades every art, every revealing of essential unfolding into the beautiful. Yes, the relation of poetry, right? But what is this relation of poetry? It's I think you can ask Kierkegaard. Could it be that the fine arts are also called a poetic revealing? Could it be that revealing lays claims to the arts most primally, so that they, for their part, may expressly foster the growth of the saving power? Now, the philosopher wants the saving power, man. Come on. We're going to get the saving power. May awaken and found anew our vision of and trust in that which grants. What's granting, right? What's the given? What's given? Whether art may be granted this highest possibility of its essence in the midst of the extreme danger, no one can tell. And he's like, look, you can be astounded. Well, there's this other possibility, right? The frenziedness of technology may entrench itself everywhere to such an extent that someday, throughout everything technological, the essence of technology may unfold essentially into the appropriative event of truth. Because the essence of technology is nothing technological, essential reflection upon technology and decisive confrontation with it must happen in a realm that is, on the one hand, akin to the essence of technology, and on the other, fundamentally different from it. Such a realm is art. I'm on 340. I'm the very last here. We say, look, art. Are we there yet? But certainly only if reflection upon art, for its part, does not shut its eyes to the constellation of truth concerning which we are questioning. The constellation of truth. Thus questioning, we bear witness to the crisis that in our sheer preoccupation with technology, we do not yet experience the essential unfolding of technology. That is, in our sheer aesthetic mindedness, we no longer guard and preserve the essential unfolding of art. Yet the more questioningly we ponder the essence of technology, the more mysterious the essence of art becomes. The closer we come to the danger, the more brightly do the ways into the saving power begin to shine, and the more questioning we become, for questioning is the piety of thought. I'm going to wrap it up soon. That's it, right? Just do art. But if we question, more questioningly we ponder the essence of technology, the more mysterious the essence of art becomes. Well, the essence of art, right? Now he's like, look, oh yeah, okay, well, the essence of technology, we've exhausted this, poetry's got our back. Poetry go, oh wait, what is the essence of art? Right? In other places, I think it's the Origin of the Work of Art. He puts poetry as working for the being of philosophy, right? And he puts poetry as this thing that's supposed to help for this being or whatever. I think you got to be careful with Heidegger and this being stuff. I've never been convinced that this kind of this being. I don't trust it. I guess I could put it that way. Nonetheless, there's something interesting here about art, right? And what we mean by art, and what we mean by unfolding and mystery, the mysterious, the basic, perhaps magic. Not magic as I put a curse on you, this kind of thing, right? But being open and available to things we don't see, right? We think in such. Think about it this way: we, in general, see within a particular scale, nanometers of wave, and that's how we decide what colors there actually are, right? We perceive it, our knowledge, our behaviors, everything is conditioned by this understanding. Even for the people who are colorblind or can't see, right? There's still an effect of that, right? Is that the essence of color within our own knowledge? What is the essence of color, right? And when we try to think about what the essence of color is, we are immediately confronted with the fact that the written word red is already affected and conditioned, right, by what we understand to be red, even if we have never seen that color. Even if if you haven't had sight, right, there is a residual part of this redness, the essence of color. The problem with the essence of art is poetry, right? And what is poetry? Right? And we're not going to know. But if we stick with this, if we don't enter into illusion, we go for fulfillment. What fulfills? And we don't fall into the trap of me, this narcissism of the day. We don't let technology turn us into narcissists, vicious shit posters on Twitter, attacking other people, all these other vicious things. If we don't do that, if we begin to care for ourselves and others, then we get closer to steering this world for our own fulfillment, right? But if we choose illusion, we choose these modalities, we fall right into it, into the standing reserve we have. It doesn't appear to us anymore. Then you need therapy. Then the industry of psychology and psychiatry will grow. Is that the saving power? Is that the modern priest of society? Could be, but is it enough? Heidegger's not just saying go practice art. I think he wants to think this is his art, in a way, becomes his art. You can see rhetorically things going on here that are fascinating. A philosopher discovering poetry in a fundamental sense. This text is, I think, one of the more decisive ones in the later writings, if not the best one, and pushes forth a whole generation, and continuing on a couple generations of questions about technology. I think it's one of the basic places to go if we want to learn ethically how to use our imagination, what mistakes Heidegger might have made, or things he didn't see. We have to attend to the text and attend to that human being as we would want to be attended to by other people. And we have to practice our community and society there. I think that's something that we can think about. And no reading is conclusive. No reading of a text can be conclusive just because the text is an object in the world, which in the four causes we learn, right? We can never really know all of the effects it'll have. There's more to say, but this text has already been 4 hours of content, and it's difficult because if I wanted to dig in and really work through these some of these strange paragraphs, I would have nothing else to do, and I have other things to do. But I think I want to thank those of you who have stuck with it, and have taken the risk of thinking and reading, writing, and so long.